The massive ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. They looked like floating crystals, each one the size of a city. Their surfaces glowed with soft blue light that hurt to look at directly. Within hours, every telescope on Earth was pointed upward, and every government was in emergency session. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire. Their message came in perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, and 50 other languages. The voice was cold and mechanical, like a computer reading a shopping list. "People of Earth," the message began. "You are now part of the Zephyrian Empire. You have two choices: submit to our rule or be destroyed. You have 72 hours to decide." The message continued with a list of demands. Earth would give 60% of all its resources to the Empire. All advanced technology would belong to the aliens. The smartest humans would be taken to serve the Empire on distant worlds. Earth would become a mining planet, and humans would work as slaves. President Martinez sat in the emergency bunker deep under Colorado. Around the table sat leaders from every major nation. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender immediately. The debate went on for hours while the alien ships waited above. "We can't fight them," said the Chinese premier. "Look at their ships. Our best weapons would be like throwing rocks at a tank." "So we just give up?" asked the Russian president. "Hand over our planet without trying?" General Hayes, the top military commander, shook his head. "Our nuclear missiles can't even reach them. Their shields stop everything we throw at them." "Fighting means everyone dies." In a small research facility in Nevada, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the news reports with interest. She was not afraid like everyone else. Instead, she was thinking. Elena had spent her whole career making impossible things work. She had built computers from scrap metal, created fuel from garbage, and solved problems that others said could not be solved. "Maria," she called to her assistant, "bring me everything we have on those alien ships. I want to know how they work." Maria Rodriguez had worked with Elena for 5 years. She knew that look in her boss's eyes. "You're not thinking of fighting them, are you?" "Not fighting," Elena said. "Thinking. There's always a way. Every system has weaknesses. Every empire makes mistakes." Meanwhile, Captain Sarah Chen sat in her small apartment watching the news. She was a cargo pilot who flew supplies to space stations. Her ship was old and slow, but she knew space better than anyone. The phone rang. It was her brother David, who worked for the government. "Sarah, they want to see you. The people in charge. They have an idea." "What kind of idea?" "The crazy kind. The kind that might get you killed." Sarah looked out her window at the alien ships floating in the night sky. "I'll be there in an hour." Dr. James Morrison sat in his lab studying the alien message. He was an expert on alien life, though until today that had been mostly theory. The Zephyrians had demanded biological samples from Earth. They wanted animals, plants, and human DNA. James knew this was important, but he could not figure out why. His computer beeped with an encrypted message. It was from Dr. Vasquez, asking him to come to Nevada immediately. The message had only one line. "We're going to do something impossible. Are you in?" Back in the bunker, President Martinez received word that Earth's governments had reached a decision. They would surrender. The alternative was the death of everyone on the planet. But before they sent their reply, Martinez made a secret phone call. "Elena, this is President Martinez. I need to know if what you're suggesting is possible." "Give me 6 months," Elena replied. "Tell them we need time to organize our surrender properly. Make them think we're scared and confused." "Are you sure about this?" "No," Elena said. "But being sure is a luxury we don't have. Sometimes you have to try the impossible because it's the only option left." The president thought about this. In a few hours, he would have to tell the most powerful aliens in the galaxy that Earth surrendered. But maybe, just maybe, there was another way. 6 months, he said. "I'll get you 6 months. The reply went out to the alien ships at exactly 71 hours and 59 minutes. Earth accepted the Empire's terms, but requested 6 months to prepare. The humans needed time to gather resources, organize their governments, and prepare the first tribute shipment. High above Earth, the alien commanders read the human reply and laughed. These primitive creatures thought 6 months would make a difference. They had watched humans fight with simple chemical rockets and crude nuclear weapons. What could such beings accomplish in mere months? The Zephyrian admiral gave the order. They would wait. It would be amusing to see what the humans tried to do with their extra time. Besides, the Empire had waited 300 years to find new slaves. 6 more months meant nothing. As the alien ships settled into orbit around Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez gathered her team in the abandoned mine shaft that would become their secret laboratory. Captain Sarah Chen arrived that night, followed by Dr. Morrison and 50 other experts who had been quietly recruited from around the world. "What we're going to attempt," Elena told them, "has never been done before. We're going to fight an interstellar empire with one cargo ship and the one advantage they don't know we have." "What advantage?" asked Sarah. Elena smiled. "We're human. We make impossible things work because we're too stubborn to quit. They're about to learn that the universe's most dangerous species is the one that refuses to stay down." Outside, the alien ships glowed in the darkness, confident in their victory. They had no idea that deep underground humanity was about to prove that sometimes the smallest voice can shout down an empire. 3 months into the 6-month deadline, the world above ground looked like it was preparing to surrender. Governments collected resources for the alien tribute. News reports showed humans loading trucks with gold, rare metals, and food supplies. Scientists packaged biological samples as requested. Everything appeared normal to the Zephyrian observers. Deep underground, however, something extraordinary was happening. The abandoned copper mine in Nevada had become the most secret place on Earth. Dr. Elena Vasquez had assembled the brightest minds from every nation. They worked in shifts around the clock, sleeping in the tunnels when exhaustion took them. "Show me the analysis again," Elena said to Dr. Morrison. He had been studying every piece of information about the aliens for months. "Their ships are made of living crystal," he explained. "The crystal thinks, calculates, and controls all their technology. It's like a biological computer that grows instead of being built." "And the weakness?" Morrison smiled. "The same thing that makes it powerful makes it vulnerable. Because it's alive, it can be infected. Because it grows, it can be reprogrammed. Because it thinks, it can be confused." Elena nodded. This was what they had been hoping for. "How long do you need to finish the nanobots?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. In another part of the mine, Captain Sarah Chen worked with a team of engineers on the cargo ship Defiance. The ship looked ordinary from the outside, just another human freighter with basic fusion engines and simple metal hull. But inside, they had made careful modifications. "The cargo bay is ready," reported Chief Engineer Tom Bradley. "From their scanners, it will look like we're carrying dirt and rocks. They won't detect what's really inside the containers." Sarah ran her hand along the ship's hull. "She's not much to look at, but she'll have to save the world. No pressure, right?" Meanwhile, the alien tribute collection station grew larger in Earth's orbit each day. It was a massive structure, bigger than any city. Ships from across the Empire brought tribute from dozens of worlds. The station processed everything automatically, its crystal computers sorting, storing, and shipping resources to the Zephyrian homeworld. Admiral Vex commanded the station from his crystal tower. To him, Earth was just another conquest. The humans seemed properly afraid and obedient. Soon they would join the ranks of slave species that kept the Empire strong. "Admiral," his aide reported, "the humans have requested permission to deliver their first tribute shipment." "About time," Vex said. I was beginning to think they would try something foolish. Grant permission. Assign them to docking base 7 Alpha with the other primitives. Back in the mine, Elena's team worked on their final preparations. The nanobots were complete, microscopic machines smaller than viruses. Each one carried a simple program that would spread through the alien crystal networks like a computer virus. Remember, Elena told her team, these nanobots don't destroy anything. They just change how the crystals think. Instead of following Zephyrian commands, the crystals will follow ours. Dr. Morrison added the final component. I've programmed them to recognize Zephyrian crystal signatures specifically. They won't affect any other technology in the galaxy, just theirs. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The Defiance would dock at the tribute station carrying what appeared to be harmless Earth soil. Hidden in that soil were billions of nanobots. Once released into the station's air system, they would find the crystal computers and begin their work. How long before the effect spreads? Sarah asked. The station will fall in hours, Elena replied. But the real goal is the quantum communication network. Every Zephyrian facility is connected by crystal links that work faster than light. Once we infect the station, the nanobots will spread to every ship and base in the Empire. Captain Sarah Chen studied the star charts one more time. And if this doesn't work? Then we die as free humans instead of living as slaves, Elena said simply. Sometimes that's the best choice you get. The Defiance launched on schedule, carrying its secret cargo toward the alien station. Sarah's crew of 12 included the best pilots, engineers, and scientists Earth could provide. Each person had volunteered knowing they might not return. As they approached the massive alien structure, Communications Officer Lisa Park opened a channel. Tribute Station Control, this is Earth Vessel Defiance requesting docking clearance. The alien voice that replied was bored and mechanical. Defiance, you are cleared for docking bay 7 Alpha. Proceed to automated guidance beacon. Do not deviate from assigned approach vector. Understood, Control. Beginning approach now. Sarah watched the station grow larger on her screens. It was beautiful in an alien way, all flowing curves and crystalline spires. But it was also a symbol of oppression, a machine built to process the wealth stolen from conquered worlds. All systems normal, reported Engineer Bradley. The cargo containers are secure. Nanobots are stable and ready for release. Dr. Morrison checked his readings one final time. The crystal signature is strong here. This station's computer network is exactly what we expected. The nanobots should spread quickly once we release them. The Defiance settled into its assigned docking bay with a soft thud. Through the windows they could see alien workers moving cargo with floating platforms. The workers paid no attention to the small human ship. After all, what threat could primitives possibly pose? This is it, Sarah announced to her crew. Remember, we're nervous humans delivering our first tribute. Act scared but cooperative. Don't let them suspect anything unusual. Elena's voice crackled over the encrypted radio from Earth. Sarah, you've carried humanity's hope this far. Now it's time to see if impossible things really can happen. Sarah looked at her crew. 12 humans about to challenge an empire that ruled the stars. Well, team, let's go save the world. As the docking tunnel extended to connect their ship to the station, Sarah Chen took a deep breath. In a few minutes, they would either begin humanity's greatest victory or die trying. Either way, they would face it as free people who had refused to surrender without a fight. The docking bay doors opened with a hiss of pressurizing air. Captain Sarah Chen stepped onto the alien station with her heart pounding, but her face showed only nervous respect. Behind her, her crew carried the first containers of Earth's tribute, ordinary-looking metal boxes filled with what appeared to be soil samples. The Zephyrian docking supervisor was a tall, thin being with pale blue skin and large black eyes. It wore robes that seemed to be made of the same crystal material as the station walls. When it spoke, Its voice had a musical quality that somehow made its words sound cold. "Primitive Vessel Defiance," it said, checking a glowing tablet. "You carry biological samples and mineral deposits as specified in the tribute requirements." "Yes, sir," Sarah replied, trying to sound intimidated. "This is our planet's first shipment. We want to do everything correctly." The supervisor barely glanced at her. To the Zephyrians, humans were just another conquered species, slightly more advanced than some, but still primitive. It had processed tribute from hundreds of worlds over the centuries. "Follow the guide lights to Processing Center 7, it instructed. "Deposit your cargo in the designated areas. Do not touch any station equipment. Do not enter restricted zones. Complete your delivery and depart immediately." "Understood," Sarah said. As her crew began moving the containers, she caught Engineer Bradley's eye. He gave the slightest nod. The first phase was working perfectly. The processing center was a vast hall filled with automated machinery. Floating platforms carried cargo from dozens of different worlds. Some containers held glowing liquids from gas giant moons. Others contained strange metals that shifted color in the light. The tribute of an empire flowed through this room like a river of stolen wealth. Sarah's crew placed their containers in the human section, a small area marked with Earth's symbol. The containers looked harmless, just metal boxes filled with dirt and rocks. The station's scanners had already confirmed they contained no weapons, no technology, nothing dangerous. What the scanners could not detect were the billions of microscopic nanobots mixed into the soil. Each nanobot was smaller than a grain of sand and designed to look like natural minerals. They had passed every inspection, traveled across space hidden in plain sight. "Cargo delivery complete," reported Dr. Morrison to the processing station's computer system. As he spoke, he pressed a hidden switch on his scanner. Deep inside the containers, the nanobots received their activation signal. At first, nothing visible happened. The containers sat quietly in their designated spots, while the station's machinery continued its work. But inside those boxes, billions of tiny machines were waking up and beginning their mission. The nanobots emerged from the containers like invisible dust, spreading through the station's air circulation system. They were designed to seek out one specific target, the living crystal that formed the brain of all Zephyrian technology. Within minutes, the first nanobots reached the station's central computer core. The crystal matrix that controlled every function of the massive structure never noticed the tiny invaders. To its alien senses, the nanobots registered as harmless space dust. But when the nanobots made contact with the crystal, everything changed. Each nanobot carried a simple program, a set of instructions that would override the crystal's original programming. Instead of obeying Zephyrian commands, the crystal would now follow human directives. The change spread through the crystal matrix like ripples in water. Admiral Vex was reviewing tribute reports in his command tower when the first glitch occurred. A section of the station's lighting flickered for a moment, then returned to normal. "Minor power fluctuation in Sector 7, his aide reported. "Maintenance systems are investigating." Vex barely looked up from his reports. After 3 centuries of running tribute operations, minor technical problems were routine. The station was so large and complex that something was always needing repair. But the flickering spread. Lights dimmed in section after section. Computer displays showed strange symbols before returning to normal. Communication systems crackled with brief bursts of static. "Sir," the aide said, sounding concerned now, "we're getting malfunction reports from multiple sectors. The computer core is running diagnostic programs, but they're not finding any problems." Still, Vex was not worried. "Run a full system reset. These primitive worlds sometimes carry electrical interference that affects our systems." What he did not know was that the nanobots were multiplying inside the crystal matrix. Each nanobot that found a piece of crystal would create copies of itself, spreading the human programming deeper into the station's brain. The process was designed to be slow enough to avoid detection until it was too late to stop. Dr. Morrison watched the processing center's displays carefully. To anyone else, the random flickers and glitches looked like normal technical problems. But to him, they were signs that the nanobots were working exactly as planned. "Phase 2 is active," he whispered into his concealed communicator. Back on Earth, Elena Vasquez received the signal and smiled. The most dangerous part of the plan was beginning. As the nanobots spread through the station, they followed the crystal network's connections. The Zephyrian Empire used quantum-entangled crystal links to communicate instantly across thousands of light years. Every ship, every base, every facility was connected to the network. The nanobots began transmitting their programming along these quantum channels. Like a virus spreading through the internet, the human code jumped from crystal to crystal, system to system, world to world. On the bridge of a Zephyrian battleship patrolling a distant star system, computers began showing the same mysterious glitches. The ship's captain ordered diagnostics, unaware that nanobots were already rewriting his vessel's programming. At a military base on the Empire's border, defensive systems flickered offline for microseconds before reactivating. The base commander assumed it was normal maintenance cycling. On the Imperial homeworld itself, the Emperor's palace computers registered brief anomalies in their data streams. Palace technicians noted the events, but found no cause for concern. Back on the tribute station, Admiral Vex was beginning to realize something was seriously wrong. Half the station's systems were showing intermittent failures. The computer core insisted everything was functioning normally, but clearly it was not. "Sir," his aide called urgently, "we're receiving reports from ships throughout the fleet. They're all experiencing similar malfunctions." For the first time, Vex felt a chill of fear. If multiple ships were affected, this was not a random technical problem. "Seal the station. No ships arrive or depart until we understand what's happening." But it was already too late. The nanobots had spread beyond the station, beyond the solar system, beyond any hope of containment. Across the galaxy, the crystal networks that held the Zephyrian Empire together were slowly, quietly switching sides. Captain Sarah Chen watched the alien workers rushing through the processing center, their calm efficiency replaced by growing panic. She had to resist the urge to smile. The impossible was happening, just as Elena had promised. Humanity's counterstrike had begun. Admiral Vex stood in his command center watching his empire fall apart. Red warning lights flashed across dozens of displays. Reports flooded in from every corner of Zephyrian space, ships drifting powerless, bases going offline, communication networks failing. "Sir," his communications officer called out, voice tight with panic. "We're receiving the same transmission from every infected system. It's broadcasting simultaneously across the entire network." "Put it on screen," Vex ordered. The main display filled with an image that made the Admiral's blood freeze. It was a human face, specifically Dr. Elena Vasquez, standing in what looked like an underground laboratory. When she spoke, her words came through in perfect Zephyrian language. "Greetings, Zephyrian Empire," Elena said calmly. "My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez, and I represent the planet Earth. I believe you are expecting our surrender. Instead, we'd like to make you a counter-offer." The transmission continued as Elena explained exactly what was happening. The nanobots, the crystal programming, the quantum network infection. She laid it all out with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. "By now, approximately 60% of your fleet is experiencing what we call technical difficulties," Elena continued. "Your weapon systems won't fire, your shields won't activate. Your navigation computers are providing creative interpretations of stellar coordinates, and this is just the beginning." Emperor Zix himself stood in the crystal throne room of his palace, watching the human broadcast with growing fury. His advisors whispered frantically around him, but he barely heard them. A primitive species from a backwater world had somehow crippled the greatest empire in the galaxy. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They barely have spaceflight. They use chemical rockets." His chief scientist, a being whose crystalline body pulsed with nervous energy, tried to explain. "The nanobots are incredibly sophisticated, my Emperor. They're designed specifically to target our crystal technology while leaving everything else untouched. It's as if these humans studied our systems for centuries." "We gave them 6 months," the Emperor said slowly. 6 months they requested to prepare their surrender. They used that time to prepare this instead, the scientist confirmed. On the tribute station, systems were failing faster now. Half the docking bays had sealed themselves. The main computer kept playing music from Earth, something called classical music that the Zephyrians found deeply disturbing. Admiral Vex could only watch helplessly as his command dissolved into chaos. But Elena's message was not finished. "We estimate it will take you approximately 18 months to purge these nanobots from your systems and rebuild your crystal networks. The cost will be roughly half of your Imperial treasury. Or," she paused, "you could consider an alternative." Captain Sarah Chen and her crew watched the broadcast from the Defiance's bridge. They had managed to return to their ship before the station went completely haywire. Now they were the only vessel in the docking bay still under full control. "She's really doing it," whispered Dr. Morrison. "She's negotiating with the entire Zephyrian Empire." Elena continued her transmission. "We don't want your territory. We don't want your tribute. What we want is simple. Leave us alone and let other species make their own choices. The nanobots include a built-in expiration date, but only if certain conditions are met." She outlined humanity's terms. The Empire would stop all expansion. All current vassal species would be granted independence. A galactic council would be established where every spacefaring civilization had equal representation. In exchange, Earth would provide the deactivation codes for the nanobots and help rebuild damaged systems. "You have 72 hours to decide," Elena concluded, echoing the Empire's original ultimatum to Earth. "The same choice you gave us. Submit or be destroyed. We're just redefining what submission means." Emperor Zix raged through his palace, but his anger could not change reality. Reports continued to arrive from across the Empire. The battleship Eternal Victory drifted helplessly near the frontier. Its crew trapped inside when life support systems decided to play human music instead of providing oxygen. Only emergency manual overrides had saved them. The fortress world of Kepler Prime had sealed its defensive shields permanently closed. The planet was safe from attack, but also completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. On the industrial moon of Titan 7, automated factories had stopped producing weapons and started manufacturing what appeared to be children's toys, small stuffed animals that looked suspiciously like Earth creatures. But the Emperor's real shock came from his military advisors. They brought news that changed everything. "Sir," General Quarks reported, "we've activated the emergency reserve fleet, 40 ships that were kept in isolation specifically for a crisis like this. They're moving toward Earth now." The Emperor felt a moment of hope. If the reserve fleet could reach Earth before the nanobots spread to them, the Empire could still crush this rebellion. But General Quarks was not finished. "However, sir, we've detected something else. The space around Earth's solar system appears to be contaminated." "Explain," the Emperor demanded. "The humans used their 6 months to do more than build nanobots," Quarks said grimly. "They've seeded the major space lanes with transmission devices. Any ship that enters certain areas receives the nanobots' programming through direct broadcast." The Emperor stared at the tactical display. Red zones marked areas of space that were now dangerous to Zephyrian ships. The zones formed a protective shell around Earth's solar system, but they also blocked several major trade routes. They've made themselves into a plague world, the Emperor said slowly. Any ship that goes near them becomes infected. Worse news followed. Earth's largest planet, called Jupiter, had been converted into a massive broadcasting array. The storms in its atmosphere had been charged with energy that could transmit the nanobot's signal across light years of space. The humans had not just created a weapon, they had created a technological disease that spread through the very networks the Empire used to maintain control. Admiral Vex received his final orders as the tribute station continued to malfunction around him. The Emperor wanted him to negotiate, not surrender. The Empire never surrendered, but negotiate. Contact the human ship, Vex ordered his communications officer. Tell them their Captain Chen is invited to discuss terms. Sarah received the invitation with mixed feelings. Success felt strange after a lifetime of being told humans were too primitive to matter. Elena, she radioed back to Earth, they want to talk. Elena's response crackled through the static of damaged communication systems. Then let's talk. But remember, Sarah, we're not begging for mercy anymore. We're offering them a way to survive what we've done to their empire. As Captain Sarah Chen prepared to meet with Admiral Vex, she looked out at the alien station around her. Just hours ago, it had been a symbol of imperial power. Now it was proof that sometimes the smallest voice could bring down the mightiest empire. The Zephyrians had learned the most important lesson in the galaxy. Never underestimate humans who have had enough. The negotiation chamber was hastily constructed in the space between Earth and Mars. It was a simple metal structure with basic life support, built by humans and Zephyrians working together for the first time in history. The symbolism was not lost on anyone. Captain Sarah Chen floated through the airlock, still amazed that she was about to represent all of humanity in talks with an interstellar empire. Across the chamber, Admiral Vex waited with a delegation of Zephyrian officials. Their faces showed barely controlled anger mixed with grudging respect. Captain Chen, Admiral Vex said formally, I admit your species has surprised us. We're full of surprises, Sarah replied. The question is what you plan to do about it. The negotiations were tense. The Zephyrians were not used to treating other species as equals. For 3 centuries, they had dictated terms to conquered worlds. Now they faced a choice between accepting human demands or watching their empire crumble system by system. Your nanobots are an act of war, declared General Corks, the Empire's chief military officer. They have infected our entire fleet. Your invasion of our world was an act of war, Sarah countered. The nanobots are just more effective than our nuclear weapons would have been. Elena's voice came through the communication link from Earth. General, let me be clear about something. We could have made these nanobots destructive. We could have programmed them to blow up your ships or poison your crews. Instead, they just make your technology refuse to follow orders. Your people are alive and unharmed. The Zephyrian delegation exchanged glances. This was true. No aliens had died from the nanobot infection. Ships were disabled, bases were offline, but crews were safe. It was perhaps the most merciful conquest in galactic history. What exactly are your terms? Admiral Vex asked. Elena outlined them again. The Empire would immediately cease all expansion and release its vassal species. A galactic council would be established with representatives from every spacefaring civilization. Trade would be voluntary, not forced tribute. Wars of conquest would be banned. In exchange, Elena continued, we will provide the deactivation codes for the nanobots. We will also share our technology to help rebuild your damaged systems. And we will offer something that no empire has ever had before. True partners instead of slaves. Emperor Zix watched the negotiations from his palace, surrounded by advisors and military leaders. The reports from across his empire grew worse by the hour. The reserve fleet had tried to approach Earth but entered one of the contaminated zones. Now 40 more ships drifted helplessly, their crews singing human songs because their computer systems thought that was what defensive protocols meant. "We could rebuild," suggested his chief scientist. "Purge all the infected crystals and start fresh." "At what cost?" the Emperor asked. "Half our treasury? 2 years of rebuilding? And what happens when the humans decide to release new nanobots?" The truth was becoming clear. The humans had not just won a single battle. They had changed the rules of galactic politics forever. Any species that could create such nanobots could threaten any empire, no matter how powerful. "They're not just demanding our surrender," the Emperor realized. "They're ending the age of empires entirely." Back in the negotiation chamber, Sarah received an urgent message from Earth. Dr. Morrison's voice was excited as he reported the latest development. "Sarah, we're getting messages from dozens of species across the galaxy. Word is spreading about what happened to the Zephyrian fleet. Other races want to know if humanity will share the nanobot technology with them." This changed everything. The nanobots were not just a weapon against the Zephyrians. They were a way for any oppressed species to defend itself against any empire. The galaxy's balance of power was shifting in real time. Admiral Vex seemed to understand this too. "If you give this technology to others, there will be chaos. Empires will fall across the galaxy." "Maybe it's time for empires to fall," Sarah said. "Maybe it's time for something better." The final agreement took 3 days to negotiate. The Zephyrian Empire would transform itself from a conquering force into the first member of the new Galactic Council. All vassal species would receive immediate independence, though they could choose to remain allied with the Empire if they wished. The Emperor himself appeared via hologram to sign the treaty. His crystal crown dimmed as he spoke the words that ended 3 centuries of Zephyrian dominance. "We accept these terms," he said formally. "The age of the Empire is over. Let the age of the Council begin." Elena activated the deactivation codes, and across the galaxy, infected systems slowly returned to normal. But the galaxy they returned to was fundamentally different. News of humanity's victory spread faster than light through quantum communication networks. On the former slave world of Andros 3, freed colonists cheered in the streets. On the mining planet Kepler 7, workers threw down their tools and declared independence. Across hundreds of worlds, species that had lived under imperial rule for generations suddenly found themselves free. Not every transition was peaceful. Some imperial governors tried to maintain control by force. Some species chose to remain with their former masters out of fear or habit, but the overall pattern was clear. The galaxy was reshaping itself into something new. A year later, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the first Galactic Council station, built in neutral space between 50 different star systems. Through the windows, she could see ships from dozens of species docking together, former enemies now working as partners. The Defiance sat in a place of honor near the station's center. The old cargo ship had been preserved as a monument, with a simple plaque in 100 languages. The ship that changed everything. Elena Vasquez had been elected as the first council president, though she insisted it was a temporary position until proper elections could be held. The Zephyrians, surprisingly, had become some of the council's most dedicated supporters. Their technology and experience were invaluable in helping newly independent worlds establish themselves. Dr. Is Morrison ran the council's research division, working on peaceful applications for the nanobot technology. They had already revolutionized medicine on dozens of worlds and were being used to clean up pollution on former industrial planets. "Any regrets?" Elena asked Sarah as they watched a group of young beings from different species working together on a joint research project. Sarah thought about it. A year ago, she had been a simple cargo pilot worried about making rent. Now she was humanity's ambassador to the galaxy, helping to build a new kind of civilization. "Just one," Sarah said finally. "I regret that it took an alien invasion to make us realize what we were capable of." Elena laughed. Maybe that's how it works. Maybe every species needs to face the impossible before they discover they can make it possible. Outside the station, space was busy with traffic as the galaxy adapted to its new reality. Trade ships carried goods between willing partners instead of forced tribute. Exploration vessels set out to discover new worlds that could join the Council freely. Research stations worked on projects too big for any single species to accomplish alone. The Zephyrian Empire was gone, replaced by something better. A galaxy where strength came not from conquest, but from cooperation, where the smallest voice could change the course of history, and where impossible things happened every day because someone was stubborn enough to try. In the end, humanity's greatest victory was not defeating an empire. It was proving that there was always another way, if you were willing to find it.